Hi there, I'm Haruka. Recently, one of my favorite mangakas was talking about what she knows of her Western audience. This mangaka is Kei Sasuga, or Sasuga-sensei, and she is the writer of Good Ending and the much more well-known Domestic Nakanojo, known in America as Domestic Girlfriend. I love Domekano and think it's an absolute masterclass of a coming-of-age character study, but Sasuga-sensei's tweet made me feel a bit weird about the way I treat the series. The tweet from December 22nd says, according to Google Translate, many foreigners get involved in the rip, but the word trash stands out in the rip. Domekano is it called garbage overseas? Well, that's fine. So there's a couple different ways to approach this idea. First of all, the series had an extremely controversial ending that I'm not going to get into right now. On the other hand, it's well known from the recent history of anime creators interacting with their Western audience that there's certain things that the Western audience does that does not translate well. Things like sarcasm, or for a lack of a better term, ball busting, doesn't really reach mangakas in the right way. Sometimes it comes off as insulting. And I guess it's not their fault for feeling that way. What we're talking about today is calling things trash straight to a creator's face, or at least in front of them. In a direct translation, trash is gonna mean trash. It's hard to explain how trash is also a good thing. I just said that I love Domekano, and I also call it trash to anyone I'm recommending it to. In fact, I call much of what I watch and read trash. I live by the words of Slavoj Žižek that I am already eating from the trash can all the time. But what does trash really mean to any of us? How do we define it? Why is it used in such a loving way in the weeb community? And does trash actually have a place among more legitimate anime? Let's first try to pin a solid definition on it. Let's start by just looking at the way the term is used in general culture right now. The idea of the dumpster fire is incredibly popular. It's supposed to describe something that is horrifying and disgusting, but you can't look away. Say the Daily News or your beloved soccer team that hasn't been relevant in over a decade. You should avoid it, but you can't help but stare. Obviously, that's just an extreme version of the word trash, but you can see how even then there's something to the idea of caring about something you name trash. But what's trash specifically in anime? I've tried to narrow down what tropes best earn a show the moniker of trash and how they relate to each other. First of all, they obviously have to have a lot of ecchi elements. There's anime ass and titties all over the place, and the show seems to be based around the excuse to show them off. Stuff like Hajimete no Gal, or the lesser-known Valkyrie Drive Mermaid, which is essentially just a lot of yuri hentai with the excuse that they turn into guns when they come. Very useful. Second is the overdramatic aspect. You have to have the actual excuses for showing the anime titties, and these stories just find some way to create an over-the-top situation that everyone accepts with a straight face. I already mentioned the plot of Valkyrie Drive, but there's also Do You Love Your Mother and her 2-hit multi-target attacks, a show that runs with the premise of what if an RPG isekai, but your mom is a big titty anime MILF and she really wants to fuck. And somehow no one questions any of it. The third and final requirement is controversy. This controversy does not usually come from within and honestly rarely comes from without. Sure, Uzaki-chan Wants to Hang Out had a massive amount of outrage from Twitter, but something like Interspecies Reviewers was seen more as a joke among the weeb community that they literally broadcasted hentai. Whether it is actual or perceived, any trash anime needs some sort of controversy, which then brings us to finally giving as full a definition as I can get. Anime is deemed trash when it makes you feel embarrassed for watching it. There could be a deeper meaning inside of this, but it's one that would take an entire series of videos to dive into. At its core, calling an anime trash comes from the perceived embarrassment of a person who consumes it. We'll get into this later. Now let's move on to why we all love trash so much. Trash isn't an idea exclusive to anime or the weeb community. In fact, it's honestly a very American thing with our reality TV industry, booming with fans of The Bachelor and Big Brother who watch the show to laugh at it. There's a massive audience for B-movie horror, the type of horror movies that get thrown to the bottom of bargain bins. And let's not forget the absolute cult around Tommy Wiseau in The Room. There's literal channels on YouTube devoted to talking about bad movies and how much they love them. When it comes to the levels of enjoyment at a show, it usually follows a sort of pattern based on the level of self-awareness in the relationship. At the first level, you laugh at a show for being so unaware that it's stupid. You go along laughing at the perceived serious viewers you create in your head who you believe have bought into the show entirely. You laugh saying, how could someone expect real people to actually watch this trash? The show does so many things over the top that it feels like a parody of something. Maybe it even is. That's when we get to level 2. Level 2 of self-awareness is when the show admits that it's kinda stupid and you laugh along with the show. When a main character gives a knowing glance to the camera camera or some character making an aside statement of how weird everything is. That Milfsekai show I mentioned earlier makes great use of this by having the son actively trying to avoid the sexy anime MILF, because she's literally his mom, and that's weird, bro. It's when you laugh and say, this show knows exactly how trash it is. It's when it admits that it is definitely a parody, possibly a parody of itself. Level 3 is where the true fun and enjoyment begins, because level 3 is where we laugh at ourselves. I can't believe how much I love this trash. You have sunk so much time into this show, and due to being so open-minded about how trash it is, you begin to genuinely enjoy yourself watching the show. The real comedy is when the screen goes black and you see your own reflection, knowing that you just sat through an entire episode of Keijo, 6 exclamation marks, and had a good time. Here's a troubling thought. Is trash actually good? I mean, I've been talking about how much we all love trash and how integral it is to the fabric of entertainment, to the point that we've got to start asking the real questions here. Are big bouncing anime titties the secret to quality film and the pinnacle of art? Well, art is obviously subjective. The quality of anything is based on opinion. Some people like ecchi, some don't. Then some of us really like anime girls that are unmarried office ladies somewhere around 28 years old with big titties, thick thighs, amazing abs, impeccable eyeshadow, and offering me some alcoholic beverage while smiling sweetly. Okay, that last bit is just me, but whatever. I have my own subreddits I visit. Point is, if you like trash, you're probably going to start seeing it as something genuinely good, because you like it. That means it's good to you. How you get to that point has more to do with the people behind the anime or manga. When writing a story, you need a hook. Something that brings the audience in and makes them want to stick around and see what happens. You might assume that a show's hook has something to do with plot, but mangakas aren't just writers, they're artists. And they know that people judge books by their cover. Everyone says that they don't, but at the end of the day, we all do. And how do you get someone to pay attention to your cute slice of life love story? Pop some titties on the cover. Yuzaki-chan isn't about being ecchi, it's just slice of life. But you clicked because of the absolutely colossal titties. And also, a story doesn't need to be good to be fun. This isn't an anime, but one of my favorite movies of all time is a really dumb 2013 action movie starring Channing Tatum and Jamie Foxx called White House Down. There is so much bad about this movie, but I used to watch it all the time in the summer between junior high and high school because it was always on the free movie channel, and it's just so easy to pick up and start watching at any point. It's trash, but enjoyable. Although, that's not what this segment is about. This is about whether a trash anime can transcend from being trash to a genuinely unironic, high-quality anime. And that's where the fun begins. Ecchi manga seems to mostly be a laboratory for mangakas. It's a place where certain concepts can be seen to their fullest and most dramatic effect. While a legitimate anime usually treads tried and true formulas, ecchi and trash seek to tweak that formula to a point that it hits something else. A lot of time it fizzles out, it's not really worth it. But at some point, the artist finds their own hook and begins to weave an interesting story. I love finding an ecchi manga and genuinely thinking about the mechanics of a world that runs on the logic presented. A world of reverse gender roles where girls are overly horny and men find them disgusting for it. Or a world where there's a virus that changes your gender if you get any sort of bodily fluids from an infected person, which turns out to be very difficult to avoid. And then there's the wholesome ecchi, where it's just an adorable love story where the artist likes flexing the fact that they can draw really sexy anime girls. A love story is a love story, and if you find the story compelling enough, you start to not even be fazed by the random panty shots. And the perfect example of an anime and manga that transcends from simple trash to actual quality literature is Domestic no Kanojo, the manga that started this whole video. It starts with an immediately trashy hook. Both the anime and the manga start with the main character having just lost his virginity. Then it develops into this weird love triangle where any move is the wrong move because everything is so roll-tide that it's hard to make a right move. But the energy of the beginning keeps you reading, exemplifying that idea of the dumpster fire that keeps you staring, until you find that you're at a point where you are no longer reading to see where this goes. You're reading to see how these characters grow and change. You become attached to characters because without the usual filter that brushes aside sex, drugs, and self-harm, you see people who can be real human beings. People with flaws, desires, and emotional deficiencies. You see them use their brokenness to heal each other. My love for Domestic Girlfriend and comments on its ending and overall story belong in a different video, but that's what I'm talking about when I say there are points where trash becomes great. Language is incredibly weird and incredibly limited. It's hard to fully express what certain anime and manga mean to us, so we use comparisons that are mostly self-deprecating. Weebs already feel dirty for enjoying anime. While it's improving, there's still a certain societal perception of anime fans, especially those who watch shows with a large amount of anime titties. And any anime that fits that bill of being outside of the accepted Western cinematic tradition is going to amplify that feeling of guilt. But that guilt is only there because on the inside, these degenerate weebs love their trash. I do too. So, To Sasuga-sensei and all the other amazing mangakas who have heard English-speaking audiences call their work trash, I understand why you'd be disappointed. It's a rough word. It's hard to hear people call something you put your heart and soul into trash. Much of the time when you make art like this, it's a huge gamble that anyone will show any interest. But trust me when I say that there are people who love what you do and appreciate your vision and desire to make the content you want to make. Also, while I have your attention, please give me a Miyabi X Furui Dojin. I really need this to be canon. Thank you all for watching. Please like and subscribe if you want to hear more about trashy anime and manga from a trash VTuber, and make sure to leave a comment with your own trash recommendations. I'm always looking for more ecchi in my life. I don't have much else going on anymore.